Welcome to another episode of Lorcana Chats. I am Chris, aka Questing for Lore, and today I have a quite well-known Lorcana community member, Rebecca. Would you like to introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. Hi. Thanks for having me on. My name is Rebecca. If you don't know me, I mostly hang out over on Instagram at Lorcana Illuminary, creating fun reels. I just have a lot of fun over there. And I'm on Twitter a little bit as well. And I hang out in the Discords. I'm kind of a little bit everywhere, but mostly over on Instagram. I know we'll talk a little bit more about my content over there, but really kind of geared towards the more like casual side of Lorcana. And it's been a lot of fun connecting with folks in the community there. So yeah,
Cool.
that's me.
Awesome. Yeah, I think when I was first really getting into the community, I think yours was one of the first Instagram accounts I came across
Uh,
because this was probably only like 6 to 8 months ago or something, and maybe a little bit longer
yeah.
than that. And and there wasn't a ton. I mean, now there's all sorts of people that are creating content, but um,
Yeah.
just looking around on Instagram and finding your fun little reels and the kind of goofier stuff. But I mean, it's great content. I love it, and I appreciate you spending the
Oh, thank
time,
you.
putting in the effort to do that stuff. But
Yeah.
okay. So, like you said, we'll talk about your content stuff after a little bit. But so I always enjoy talking to my guests about kind of their origin story with Lorcana. So what kind of really attracted you to it in the first place?
Yeah, so I grew up, a Disney kid for sure. I grew up in Southern California actually, so we went to Disneyland all the time, loved all the movies. I was a kid in the 90s, which to me is like, that was the Disney Renaissance, right? The best
Yep.
movies came out
Yeah.
in the 90s. And so just have always been a big Disney fan. When I was in junior high and high school, I actually did play Magic: The Gathering, very
Okay.
casually, just like my parents. They almost had their hands on the alpha set. I think they did get some beta
Oh,
cards
really?
actually.
Okay.
So they were very early, and we just played casually at home with some of my parents' friends that they knew that were into card games.
Mhm.
And then like friends at school, we'd play after school or recess or whatever, but just really casually. And then after high school, I kind of just didn't play very much anymore. And then I had kids. And so when I have two kids, I'm a mom.
Mhm.
My son got to be around like 7. I was like, oh, I think he's at the age now where he could maybe like learn magic, and how to play. And so I kind of taught him like the basics of it.
Right.
And he liked it a little bit, and he had like a neighborhood friend that he would play with, but we didn't play very much. And that was, like almost like 6, 7 years ago.
Mhm.
And then I heard like whispers about, oh, there's this new card game coming out that's very similar to Magic the Gathering, but it's Disney.
Right.
And to be honest, my first thought was, but is it gonna be good?
Yeah.
Like,
Is it just going to be like, oh,
is
okay,
it
this is
just
kind of fun? And yeah.
right? Is it just, they're using the Disney IP to like, because people who are Disney fans, like we will all buy stuff if it has the mouse on it.
Right.
But would it be like an actually good game? And so I didn't really pay much attention to it. But then I think like Gen Con happened and I heard how like there's such a mad rush there and people
Hmm.
were so excited about it. And then there's just started to be a lot more like buzz around this new game. And so I missed the hobby store release when it came out. But then when it was coming to, to all the big box stores, I was like, okay, I think I need to actually check this out.
Right.
And then I was hooked. I got the cards, I got a starter deck, and I was able to order some things on, disneystore.com, and the cards are just great. They're beautiful. I love
Hmm.
the art, and the game itself was so fun. Got my son into it, so now we play together.
Yep.
And then I just got so excited that I was like, I'm gonna make an Instagram account. So I think actually I went back and looked, and my very first post on Instagram was on September 7th, I think. So like
Okay.
right after, I think September 1st was when it came out, like in big box stores. So I just
Okay.
got real excited right away and have been into it ever since. But yeah,
Nice.
so it's kind of like that history of having some experience of playing Magic as a kid and then being a Disney lover and hearing all the buzz, and all of that kind of all mixed together into this perfect storm to get me into the game.
Oh, cool. Yeah. It's funny how many people I talk to and they're like, yeah, I used to play Magic but
Hmm.
there's also a lot of people that this is their first TCG. Like they
Yes.
had no idea. They were like, "Oh, it's a card game. It sounds fun." But,
Right.
and then they got into it, like, like you were saying, got into it and just absolutely loved it. So
Yeah.
it's really cool to
And like
see all the different backgrounds.
all the different backgrounds. And I played Magic though, like it was literally in the 90s. The game is so different now. And like I
Oh,
said, just
yeah.
very casually. And so, but I had kind of, that foundational understanding of, just mechanically kind of, and some things are different, but there's a lot that translates directly over. And so I think that helped me to pick up the game really quickly. And I was able to
Mhm.
teach my son how to do it. And he also, since he had played Magic a little bit, and that's the other thing that's been really, really great about playing this game is that, my son, he's 14 now. And as your kids get older, um, I don't know, when they are teenagers, it's good to have something that we can do together and
Right.
connect on.
Yeah.
Like a mom and a teenage boy, like having something, a common interest that we can, have together, I think is really great for our relationship as a mother and son. So that's another part that I really love about the game.
Yeah, definitely. And it's nice to have somebody built in to be able to play with too.
Yes, yes, that is very true.
Yeah, I tried to get one of my sons into it. My older son, he was like, "Nah, no thanks." But
Eh.
my younger son went to league a couple of times, and we did a draft event one
Oh,
time,
fun.
and he liked it okay. But he's not he likes games that are a little more cooperative. So like
Oh, sure.
multiplayer might have appealed a little bit more to him, but
Yeah.
um
Try the
but
Lumineers Quest with him.
yes, we did actually. And he really
Yeah.
enjoyed that. We
Did he? Nice.
it took a few tries, but we finally beat her after
Yes.
a couple of shots. So yeah,
She's
yeah, yeah.
hot.
She is. I mean, even the easy one, I was like,
I know.
holy cow. It's like, I don't
Yeah.
know if I'm ever gonna get to open that little shiny envelope,
I
but
know.
oh. Well, cool. Well, I'm glad that, you're able to kind of share it with your family. I know even on your Instagram stuff, your family's starting to get involved with some of that as well.
Yeah, and that's been really neat. My daughter, who's younger, she's 11, and she's been like not as interested, kind of like what you're talking about with your sons. But she does like the cute theme decks, like making a puppy deck was really fun for her.
Yeah.
Playing Illuminator's Quest cooperatively against Ursula, she really enjoyed.
Hmm.
And my husband has not been interested at all. He played like one game with me like a long time ago, and I gave him my deck and he actually beat me and he's like, I retire undefeated. He's like,
Undefeated.
that's it.
Nice.
He's like, he's more of like a Zelda guy, he wants to just like
Right.
go and like battle. And he's not so much about like strategy games and stuff. And he watched us playing. My mom came over because my mom plays too, actually.
Oh,
So we've
okay.
got three generations playing.
Nice. Nice.
My mom goes to league with us. And so my mom came over and was playing Illumineer's Quest with me and both my kids. And my husband kept on walking by in the room, and like he'd walk by and then he'd walk by again, but then like stop a little bit. And then he'd walk by again and
What's
he'd
going
like
on over there?
watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he'd like start asking questions like, oh, so you guys all like you play at the same time? Okay. Oh, okay. And wait, and how do you beat Ursula? And he kept asking questions. And then it was
Hmm.
like and then the next day he was like, so could you help me build a DuckTales deck?
Yes. Got your
Yes,
in.
I will. So yeah, so we've played a few games now with of Illumineer's Quest with him, with my
Hmm.
husband as well. And he'll never be into it as much as I am, and that's totally fine. But it is
Yeah.
fun that he's like, the Illumineer's Quest was kind of the thing that hooked him into it a little bit, which I think is so smart on the part of Ravensburger that
Hmm.
they have, and even with the new Gateway product that's coming in the next set, like
Right.
they have all these different entry points to the game for different people, so you have like the co-op version, you have the gateway for people who are brand new to TCGs, you have the starter decks. Like there's just so many on-ramps to this game, and I
Hmm.
know that there's going to continue to be more, so that you have people of all different ages, all different experience levels with TCGs who can come at this game in whatever way makes the most sense for them. And
Yeah.
so it's just really great to see.
Well, and it's really cool to have a community where it's not about being competitive. Like that's not the only thing,
The
right?
only thing.
It's a
Yeah.
big part of it, right? Because I mean, it's a
Mm,
game, so you want to
yes.
you want to
You want
compete,
to win.
win fabulous prizes. But there's some people that like puppy decks. They like theme
Yeah.
decks. They like, I think the Smorkana folks, their league
Mm,
does all sorts of really interesting like modify
yeah.
starter decks, and you kind of learn as you go, and and it's really cool to see all the different approaches to the same game. It's
Yeah.
essentially the same thing. Like you were saying, there's a couple of different ways to get into it, but at its heart, it's all the same. And it's okay if you only want to play every once in a while. It's okay if you want to play every
Hmm.
day. I mean, you know,
Exactly.
so
Yeah, and sometimes you want to play a theme deck and sometimes you want to play really competitively. It's like even a single person can like bounce back and forth in how they want to
oh
play the
yeah.
game. So, yeah, I love that about the game, that you really can approach it in all those different ways.
Hmm.
And we see that in the community. I think that I see a lot more of the people who are engaging in a more casual way on my Instagram account.
Yeah.
A lot of people who this is their first TCG, Disney fans and everything. And then I'm also over on Twitter, which is kind of where more of the competitive TCG
Yeah.
players are.
Yeah,
So
they
it's
they
really
do hang out
interesting.
there.
Yeah, because that's where it's like, oh, all the really competitive TCG guys, and gals are over on Twitter. And then like the Disney people who are building like brooms decks and puppy decks are
Yeah.
on Instagram, broadly speaking, of course. But it's neat
Right.
because
Right.
I do see, all different aspects in these spaces where I'm engaging with the community, which is
Hmm.
cool. And then also in my own household, like I have my son who's really kind of becoming more of a competitive player. And
Yeah.
then I have my daughter and my husband who are like, we just want fun decks, and the
Yeah.
Lumineers
Yeah.
Quest. So anyway, yeah, it's fun that there's all different ways to engage with the game.
Oh yeah. So if there was somebody that was just getting into Lorcana, say they haven't played a TCG
Mm.
before, what would be like your first piece of advice for them?
Oh, that's a good question. I think just not being scared to try it. Like it's easier to pick up than people might think. Like the
Hmm.
game is as complicated as you want it to be. And to learn the game, the basic mechanics, I think it is pretty simple. If you have, like the app has like little tutorials, of like, this
Hmm.
is the basic gameplay of it, grab a starter deck or the Illumineer's Quest. Like you can learn the basic mechanics of the game really quickly. Um, and I've made some posts about this on Instagram where it's like, yes, you can get into the meta. You can learn like all the ins and the outs of the strategy. And for some people, that's really fun. But you do not have to. It's
No.
as complex as you want it to be, but it
Hmm.
really doesn't have to be complex at all.
Yeah.
So for somebody who's just starting out, it's like just jump in, learn the basics, have fun, and then you can decide how much more you want to dive into the complexity of the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I played Magic a little bit
Mm,
way back, way early days.
yeah.
And And so, I hadn't played it in forever. And so before, Lorcana, I hadn't really, I'd read about it a little bit, but I didn't know about it. I was like, well, maybe I'll pick Magic back up,
Mm.
um and so I got a one of the starter things and all, and I started looking through it, and I was like, this is nothing like I remember. It's like way more complicated. And so, I was like, well, okay, maybe Lorcana will be a little simpler. And so I started looking at some of the cards and the mechanics and stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is way simpler.
Hmm.
There's way less to keep track of. And, we
Yeah.
might get there in the future, but right
Right. Right.
now it's just so like things make sense,
Hmm.
and like related to the characters that we all know and love.
Oh, yeah.
It's like Tinkerbell has evasive. Of course she does,
Of course she
It's
does.
like it
Right.
makes
Because she
sense, right?
flies.
Yeah. But stuff like that. And then the Disney IP that's like familiar to everybody.
Hmm.
The vast,
Oh, yeah.
ocean of Disney IP that they have to pull from. Um, it's really cool to have kind of that connection with the Disney folks too, right?
Oh,
So it's
yeah.
not just somebody coming in and saying, "Oh, Magic looks really fun. I'm going to play it," and it's like this isolated thing. People build. There's a lot of people now for set 5 talking about Robin Hood decks because we're
Oh,
getting so
yeah.
many of that. Just the whole theme kind of stuff is really fun as well. So
Super fun. I mean, the league that we go to, which there are a lot of competitive players, but people are still like decked out and like wearing their Disney shirts,
yep,
and
yep,
bringing their lounge fly bags or whatever. And like, yeah, it's so fun that we can all play this game around these movies and these characters and these songs that we all know and love. There's a lot of like nostalgia with a lot of the older stuff, and then
yep.
excitement with like the newer movies. Um, and then as far as like somebody learning the game, I think that because they're characters that we are familiar with, it actually makes it easier to remember the characters and the different cards and what they do, because you're like,
Mhm.
oh, like you're just saying, like, oh yeah, Tinkerbell has evasive, or there's like the little Robin Hood that can, do one damage, because he's got his bow and arrow, so
Right,
he's like
right.
he can do damage, and just like little things like that where it's like, okay, like our brain has um it can make those connections easier because there's two things. There's the character, and then there's like the abilities or the things about the card. And since we're already familiar with one thing, it makes it easier for us to make the connection with the unknown thing instead of like two unknown
Yep.
things. Where in like Magic, it's like, oh, the blah blah ogre, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Like,
It's
I don't
like,
know what that is.
okay. I mean, I guess that makes sense, but yeah,
Sure.
I'm not familiar
You
with that
know,
character. So,
exactly. And so having like a known thing, I think
hmm.
helps people to pick it up. And it's also just fun to be like, I'm banishing your, Pluto with my,
Yep.
Cruella de Vil or whatever it is. Like that's just fun to say.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can always tell the Magic players because they say like kill and tap and,
Oh,
all that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
So,
Exert, banish,
exert.
yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
Because it's Disney. So we are
Right.
just
Right.
people are banished. That's
Yep.
that's the Disney way.
Not to a graveyard, just to the discard.
Discard. Yes.
Right. Well, so we already talked a little bit about your content creation stuff, and how you kind of got started with it. You're doing great. I think, did you hit 5K followers
I
yet?
did. I did
That's
hit
awesome.
5K. It was
Holy
so, I
cow.
mean, I can't even. So here's a little funny story, very briefly, is I said to my husband really early on, I was like, at what point will you be like, okay, this is kind of serious. Rebecca's serious about this. And
Right.
I specifically remember him saying like, well, if you have 1,000 followers, then that's pretty good. That's pretty serious. And so the fact that now I have hit this really big milestone of 5,000 followers on
Yeah.
Instagram to me is amazing. And I love it so much and just knowing that there's people out there that what I do brings a smile or a laugh
Mhm.
or a video. I try to make some, like instructional tutorial how-to videos as well sometimes that are like
Mhm.
really basic for new players. So to help, people learn the game, that they can relate to what I create is just really cool. It's just, and it's so
Yeah.
fun. I love it. So, thank you for everyone out there who is following me. It's been amazing.
Yeah. And if you're not following her, you should. Absolutely. We'll
Thank
have
you.
more information about how to do that at the end. But yes, you I like I said at the beginning, I love your stuff. You know, it's always nice. It brings a smile on my face when it pops up on my feed, and you know, all the fun little skit things like the what
Yeah.
was it, the ink dating
Oh,
one,
the
or
inks.
the
Oh, when
Bachelor.
I did
Yeah.
like the Bachelor series.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
That was
Yes.
pretty fun. I
So
love
I
that.
have I'm a theater kid. Actually, I'm a
Mhm.
theater adult as well. I was in my first musical when I was like 8 or 9, and I
Oh,
did theater all the way up until that's what I graduated college with a theater degree and
okay.
did it into my adult years until my kids were born, really, because I was a mom and you don't have as much
Right.
time for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so uh yeah, so having my theater background, and I'm just like have always been a very like creative person, and
Hmm.
so I always like to have some kind of creative outlet. And since I can't do theater productions with family life and everything, it's like doing this, taking this game that I love and then being able to bring in some theatricality to it, it
Yeah.
like is the perfect marriage between my different passions and everything, and bringing my creativity to the game has been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The inks,
Yeah.
the
Well,
inks are
and
fun.
I mean, I'm amazed. I see, you know, everything that's going past, and I mean, you must spend a lot of time on this, like out of your day.
You know, if I was smart about it, like, don't do this the way I do it. If anyone's looking into making content, I kind of just am like, I wait for like creativity to strike me, or like each day I'm like, oh, what's something I could do today? Like I don't plan things out in advance. It's terrible. Um, and so sometimes some reels will take me a long time, or even like I'll film something for like 5 minutes, but then it takes me an hour to edit it together,
Right.
But
Right.
sometimes I can make a whole reel in 5 minutes total, So it just kind of depends on the video and what I'm doing. Um, some, like the ink videos where they're all
Mhm.
wearing different
Oh, the
outfits and
different color.
whatever,
Yeah. Yeah.
different
Yeah.
colored things,
Mhm.
like those do take the longest. But
Right.
they're so much fun. And really yeah, it's not, I wish that I had more time in my day to do more stuff like that. I work part-time from home, which allows me actually a lot of flexibility to kind of
Hmm.
like squeeze in some content
Mm.
since I
Yeah.
work from home. But yeah, it's a lot of fun and time I enjoy, you know, being a mom. It can be, I think, for parents in general to like um lose a bit of like your own identity, excuse me, and
Hmm.
like, forget like the things that you love and are passionate about very easily. And so I think that that's one of the reasons why I'm okay spending the time that I do on this, is because, I still make a lot of choices to spend time with my kids. Like this time around, I
Oh
didn't do
yeah.
set championships, so I could spend time with my family and my kids, but I still need to do things for myself and things that
Yeah.
are me and my own passions. And I've been lucky that Lorcana has been like a way for me to keep doing the things that I love, that I feel are like my own, So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's time
Oh
where
yeah.
well worth spent.
It's totally important to have that kind of
Yes.
thing. You know, speaking as another parent, you know, it's so
Hmm.
easy to get lost in all the kid stuff, you know. And my
Yes.
boys they're pretty active. You know, they're it seems like especially my older son is always doing something, whether it's
Something,
work
right?
or, you know, sports or yeah. But yeah, no, it is so important to have that thing, and it's nice, you know, that you have something that's that fulfilling, right? It's
Mm,
not just, oh, I'm making videos and putting them out there, and you know, nobody watches them, they're not very good, you know,
sure.
anything like that. Um, you know, it's got to be great to have that, you know, not only to hit that milestone, but to have so much, positive feedback. I don't know if I've seen any negative comments on any of your videos, on your
Every
reels.
once in a
So
while.
yeah, yeah.
Every once in a while. I made a video the other day where I said something wrong about a card, and I had a few people that were like, that's not right. But I'm like,
Okay.
oh, sorry.
Little nitpicky
But
stuff. Yes.
yeah, but in general, no. I think that, when it comes to creating content, having like a niche, and
Hmm.
hitting the right thing. And I was lucky. I kind of, was able to hit a few things all at the same time that worked in my favor. Like you mentioned before, there weren't a lot of Lorcana accounts on Instagram at all
Hmm.
for a really long time. Now there's a lot more. I was
Yeah.
one of the very first early people on there. So I was lucky in that regard. Um, Even still today, there's not a lot of casual content being made. There's a
Yeah.
lot more, competitive content, the deck analysis, gameplay, like that kind of thing. There's some casual content out there, but I'm one of the few in that space. So I
Hmm.
think there's just a few things like that where what I do is I'm so glad that I have a creative outlet, something that I can do that I enjoy, and then also I've kind of hit it at the right time with the right audience. With what I do. And so it's been able to gain some traction in the Lorcana community because there's not a lot of people out there yet doing what I'm doing. I'm sure,
Right.
in 6 months from now or, 3 months or a year or whatever, there'll be like a bunch more people. And I hope there are because I think we need more content, like this short form and, the funny stuff. People love to laugh.
Hmm.
People want to be entertained. So, you
Oh
know.
yeah. Yeah. And it is great that there's so many different kinds of content.
Absolutely.
If you're not highly competitive, then maybe you don't watch the deck videos and everything. But there's also a lot of people that are, like you've also got Breezy, why Breezy that does
Yeah.
Lorcana After Dark that,
After dark. It's great.
super casual. I mean, they talk about Lorcana, but it's also just like, hey, let's go hang out.
Yes.
Which is great. I love that there's so many different kinds of content out there already I mean, it's a relatively young community,
Oh,
as
absolutely.
far as, the span of the span of the usual TCG life, excluding
Yeah.
Magic, because that's just like a weird, I think that's still going to be around in like 100 years in some form. So
Probably. Probably. I wouldn't be surprised if Lorcana is too.
yeah.
Between what we've seen with the game and the community so far up to this point, and it being Disney, I just think, you know, and the community, I know we're going to talk about a community a little bit as well. Like
Mhm.
it's pretty healthy, I think, broadly speaking, it's a healthy community. Um, and I think that all those things together will make this game be lasting for a long, long time. I hope so.
Yeah, yeah, me too. I don't see anything that would prevent that. I mean,
Yeah,
it seems like it's building up more and more steam all the time. So, they
absolutely.
figured out the whole card distribution, scarcity thing after
Mm-hmm.
the first set. And
Yes.
now it seems like
Yes.
there's plenty of stuff out there, which is
Plenty.
great.
It's great. Yes. I mean, especially for new players, you want there to be product that sits on the shelves in Target so that when somebody walks by, they go, oh,
Like,
why is there
that's
like
Disney. What? Yeah.
Disney on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What is that? Oh, and they pick it up. So yeah, it's great.
Well, and it's cool too to see so many different age ranges getting involved in the game, and
Yes.
being excited about it. I think was it the Illuminatiers a couple of weeks back? They
Yeah.
had all the kids, that were in, and they're playing in, DLCs and set championships and stuff, and they're really good. It's,
Yeah. Really
it's
good.
not like it's like, oh, it's a kids card game, so it's okay if kids play it, we'll let them play.
Right.
No, these
No.
kids they're rough.
It's for anyone. Oh yeah, those kids are fierce. My son actually got to be on that call for the
That's
Illumiteers, which
right.
was
Yeah, that's
very
right.
cool. So, but I think we're gonna see lots more and more, which is gonna be really neat. And we're gonna see I'm sure we're going to start seeing some kids, topping at the Disney kind of challenges
Oh yeah.
soon because yeah,
Yeah.
there's some really strong young competitors out there.
Yes, definitely. And it's good to know that there's like a, not to sound like an older person, but to know that there's another generation of,
Absolutely. Yep.
Lorcana players already kind of, building to keep the
Absolutely.
game, the momentum going. And who knows, they may turn into content creators themselves someday. So
Exactly. You never
never
know.
know. Um, all right. So, we did talk a little bit about the community. You had said, you think the community is great, wholeheartedly agree. I can't tell you the number of people that I talked to that are like, I had no idea what the community for this game was going to be like, but as soon as I
Mm,
got into it, it's amazing.
yeah.
There's so many avenues, so many welcoming ways to get into it. Um, I just talked to the Love to Lore folks,
Yeah.
a little bit back, and to see something like that start up so soon after the game has started up, to make sure that the diversity and inclusivity and everything is kind of built into the community from the start is so awesome.
Yeah.
Uh,
No, I love it. I think there's a lot of people in the community that I see who are being very intentional about it being a welcome, diverse, inclusive space, which is what you need. Like it doesn't happen by accident
mhm.
that people of, marginalized genders or people of color or different ages, like all of those things, like it doesn't just happen by accident that everybody
Right.
feels welcome. Like everyone in the community needs to be intentional about making sure that the space is welcoming for all people. And I think that that's what we're seeing is a lot of community members who are being very intentional about making this a very welcoming space and not just, online, but people sharing stories. And I've seen it myself in my local community of in person in local game stores, people saying, we want this to be a welcoming space. And, we're not going to accept toxic behavior. and
Yep.
and
Yep.
so this, and that it's kind of the culture right now, with it being such a brand new, young game, it's kind of like the culture of the game is being formed as we're going.
Yep.
And I think for even that we see at the level of Ravensburger, that they're
Yep.
even being intentional about it from that high up, like the fact that they asked me as a woman, as a more casual player, to be a part of the commentating team. Like that right there shows that
Mhm.
they're being intentional about saying we have a diverse audience and we want to have that represented in this space.
Yep.
So I think that, and I think also with people who come from other games, that I have not been a part of those communities, but I've heard that there can be a lot of toxic behavior or negative
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yep.
I think that people who come into Lurkana are saying, we want this to be different and we want it to be better. And so I just hope that it keeps going in that direction, and that people are open to having conversations, being a little vulnerable,
Hmm.
growing. We all, even myself, we can all listen and learn from other people's experiences and to
Oh yeah.
continue to be intentional. Again, it's that intention of making it a welcome game for all. So, and if we can keep doing that, then, sky's the limit for how this game will grow.
Yeah, definitely. So if you had to focus in on like one thing that we as a community could do better in the future, what would you say?
I think, and if anyone follows me on Twitter, you've probably seen me make some posts now again talking about the difference in experience that casual players have versus competitive players. And I know, and I
Mhm.
hate like making that dichotomy, and it's not like it's a this or that or versus or whatever. But there's, like we were talking earlier in our conversation, there's different ways to engage in the game. And I think that sometimes people can get a little tunnel vision on the way that they engage in the game and
Yep.
think that it's the only or best way, or that there's just a lack of empathy and understanding of the different ways that other people engage with the game. And so that I think would be the most beneficial thing, I think, for the community as a whole on both sides, of everyone listening and understanding that people want to come at this game in different ways, and that that's okay, and that we can all
Yep.
still be a part of this community and welcome each other, but allow space for there to be different ways to engage with the game. So that would be the one thing I think that we can all be better at.
Yep. Definitely. Yeah, and I think, that'll only add to that whole atmosphere of, everybody belonging when they come to this game,
Absolutely.
you know.
Yes.
So regardless of if you've played, TCGs for the past 20 years, or you
Right.
literally
Yeah.
picked up a starter deck when you walked in the door,
Right. I
everybody
mean,
can
because,
be a part of it.
yeah, you don't want to go to league and like, or to, let's just say, not even league, but you don't want to go to a local game store, and you don't want to be somebody who I'm a Disney fan. I just heard about this game. I picked up this starter deck off the shelf, and then I'm going to sit down and play games. And then you just get smashed by all these
Yep.
competitive players. Like,
Yep.
that's not fun for that person. But you also don't want to have, oh, I have been playing Magic or Yu-Gi-Oh or Pokemon or whatever for the last 10 years, and I'm finally going to give Lorcana a chance. I'm going to build a deck. I'm going to learn the strategy. I'm going to walk into my local game store, but everyone's just playing, puppies. Like,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Like, both things, both of those experiences are, not like, you want to have right places for, like, the right spaces for people to engage with the game on both
Yep.
sides,
Yep.
and I think that we'll start to see, as the game grows and as Ravensburger has more support for different kinds of things, that we'll see that happen more and more, but
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
definitely is both ways. And what's great though is that I really do see competitive players who are really supportive of casual space and spaces, and vice versa. There are casual players who are like, yeah, we need healthy competitive spaces too. So I
Yep.
think it's just figuring it out. We're figuring it
Yep. Yep. And I
out.
like, I've heard of some LGSs that do like a learn Lorcana night, right? It's
Hmm.
specifically for people that want to come in and, bring their starter decks or bring some goofy little deck that they've been playing with, or, something like that, where it's super casual. It's not, set championships where it's,
Right.
high pressure kind of situation. And I really hope that more groups out there, especially as the community grows, because it's only going to grow. We all know it.
Mm. Yeah.
As it
Yeah.
grows, to be able to have more of that kind of thing, where there's always going to be something where people new to the game can come and feel comfortable, even if it's just like, regular league, but they have a table,
Right.
and somebody comes in
Yeah.
and says, "Hey, I want to learn this." So somebody there for league just says, "Hey, okay, let's play,"
Go sit over here. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, all right. So I want to talk some about it. The oh my gosh, I can't think of the word. At the DLCs, when you
Oh,
commentated, there we
commentating.
go.
Yes.
Yes. It's frustrating when you can't think of a word.
Yes.
So commentating on the DLCs, you've done three
Yes.
now or just two?
Two.
Okay.
So I did remote broadcasting, commentary for Atlanta, the very
Mhm.
first one, and then I
Right.
was on site for the Chicago Challenge, and then I will be on site again for Fort Worth, which is very
Okay.
exciting. So
Cool.
yeah,
Very cool.
so but I've done two so far, and they were both incredible experiences. I will say being in person was a lot more fun, obviously, because you're
Yep.
there
Yep.
in person with all the
You got
action
the
going
energy
on.
and yeah. Yep.
Exactly. All the vibes, all the Disney kind of vibes, And, what's funny is like, I think it's like I have my local league that I go to every week and everything, but there was definitely, I think the community as a whole, like broadly speaking, was just like waiting to all get in the room and be
Hmm.
together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that they experienced that in Atlanta. And then when I was there in Chicago, it's like each region is kind of like experiencing that for the first time of being like, there's like over 1,000 Lurkana
Yeah.
friends here in this room getting to play this game. And that's amazing. Like we've all been just like waiting to all get together. It's like a
Mhm.
reunion, but except we're not it's like the first union.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you have that camaraderie, right? Because everybody loves the game. Everybody's coming there for the same kinds of reasons, even if you're just
Yeah.
going to, be an attendee and compete in side events or something
Oh
like that. I
yeah.
mean, you're still there to play the game because you
To
love it,
play. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And then commentating was a super great experience. It
yeah.
was my first time ever doing commentary like
Okay.
this. So,
Wouldn't have
um,
known.
oh, thank you. And yeah, I I don't know, I practiced, if you can call it that, like once where I pulled up a game on YouTube and kind of like just talked through it as I watched, I put it on mute and just talked
Okay.
through it to myself. But I didn't have any other experience with commentating. I kind of went into it a little blind, so to speak, and but I had so much
Yeah.
fun doing it. Both of my casting partners, John T from the Inkwell, I casted
Mhm.
with him for Atlanta. We had a great time, and then casting with Brandon B Squared 24 for Chicago was another great experience. So I'm looking forward to the next one. And I don't know, there's just you get to talk about this game, right? That
Right.
it's the same as if I was going to play. Well, it's not the same. It's different, but there's just like all this excitement and I'm not playing, but I get to watch people play and I get to talk
Yeah.
about it and ask questions, and it just was really exciting. I really enjoyed it and um I mean, I was lucky that they enjoyed my how I did with commentating, so they asked me back. So that
No. Yeah,
was
like I
great.
said, I mean, you're doing great. So
Thank
don't-
you.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Um,
I hope that I get to more opportunities to do it. So if they're listening, I hope. So because yeah, it was not something in my mind that I had even kind of considered a possibility. And really I think it's because I didn't think they would want someone like me
mhm.
to be a commentator because I'm not making content out there that's like really competitive strategy, in-depth
Right.
analysis and all
Right.
of that. And so I didn't even think that they would want somebody, on the more casual side. And I do know a lot about the game. So
Yeah,
not
of
to sell
course.
myself short, like I understand, like I understand the game, like, and I'm a good player, and I do
Mhm.
make more casual content. But I know the game. And uh, but I didn't think they would want someone like me. But like I said, they asked me, and I think it shows not just because I'm a female, and so there's that gender representation, but also
Mhm.
because the content that I make is more geared towards casual audiences, that it shows that they're really wanting to appeal to the diverse player base that makes
Right.
up the
Right.
community of Lurkana. And well, by having me, and I see a play and I'm like, oh, that's, interesting, why would they have done this instead of that, and asking questions that maybe people who are at home watching are thinking as they're watching the games, that I can ask those questions and we can talk about it and learn, and then people, you learn a lot from watching commentary, I
Oh
think.
yeah.
And so like I've told my son that I'm like, if you want to like become a better player, go watch some of the DLC games that have been streamed to see how the players are playing and hear what the commentators are saying. But anyway, all that to say, I did not think that they wanted someone like me, but I think it's important now that I've done it. I'm like, I see what they were doing there. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Well,
yeah.
and it's always good to have, you have both sides of the coin, right? So you have somebody that's
Yes.
there, asking the questions or, saying, "Oh, I heard this story about this the other day," or, we were talking online about this thing. It's not like
Yeah.
specifically about the game, but there's also kind of, context around it, and then you go back and forth between the two of you. And it's a
Yes,
good balance to where it's not just
it
all
is.
hardcore technical.
Right. Right. And like you want that technical analytical piece of it. Like you definitely
Right.
need that and you want it. But like listen, it's a Disney game. So we need some Disney in there too.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's great. And I love having Liam and everybody else on there,
Yeah.
kind of bringing the positivity, as well as,
Mm.
you and Brandon and everybody. But it's not like, okay, this is serious business. We're gonna
Hmm.
sit down and talk about this. It's lighthearted. It kind of fits with the community and with the game.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
nice. Oh,
Well, thank you. It's been a lot of fun. The team has been great and yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one and hopefully more. We will see.
yeah, here's hoping. So I do want to get back to the game a little bit itself.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we've been talking about the game the whole time, but so more specific though, is there anything, especially as a former Magic player, is there anything that
Mm.
you would like to see as a part of the game's future? We talked a little bit about the community and how it can improve, but I
Yeah.
want to focus a little more on the actual game.
Yeah. I think, there's one thing that I think would be really interesting, and people have already been talking about this forever. I'm not the only one out there. And there was some speculation actually that it might be coming soon. With well, it was the Stitch card that got revealed where people want to see a dual ink cards.
Ah, yes, the tug
And
of war one.
the tug
Yes.
of war one, yes,
Hmm.
where Stitch, it was like it was a amethyst or a steel card, but the amethyst banner was
Amethyst
in it, and they
flag.
were like,
Yep.
"Oh, it's gonna be both," and it wasn't. But
No.
I do think eventually we might see that. Maybe, I hope. I think it would be super interesting if you had a card that could, like, for example, let's take that card. If it was a card that was counted as both amethyst and steel, so then that meant you could only play it in an amethyst steel deck,
Right.
right? And you couldn't play it in an amethyst ruby deck, for example, or a
Hmm.
steel sapphire deck. I think that would bring some really interesting deck building, creativity with cards like that. So that's something I hope in the future that we'll see some of.
Yeah. It would be cool if they use that as an opportunity to do like matching characters, like,
Yeah.
Chip and Dale, or,
Yeah.
and they already did Flotsam and Jetsam, but
Right.
to be able to have, two different sides of the same thing, kind of in the
Yes.
same card would be pretty cool.
That would be really cool. Yeah. And then I think the other thing that I don't know if they'll ever do this though, but it would be interesting, would be because we have all these different like takes on characters that we know,
Hmm.
with the Dreamborn and the Floodborn versions of them, would be to see villains more portrayed like heroes and vice versa,
Yeah.
heroes
Yeah.
portrayed more like villains. I think that would be another really interesting thing. I don't know if they'll ever go there, but that would be fun.
I I could see it. I mean, if it's done the right way, right? And I mean, if
In the
there's
right
anybody
way.
that can do
Yes.
that, it's Disney. They
It's
can
true.
they can figure it out. And the
Yes.
amazing artists that they found for these
Oh
cards.
man. Yes. And it just keeps getting better. I love all the
Yeah.
art. It's amazing. Yeah, I love the art. I am hoping, and I'm sure it's coming because I mean they've just got to be working on this in the future. I want a coffee table book, like a
Yes.
large format
Yes.
book with big images. I want like stories from the artists, of like
Oh,
the
that would be
development
awesome.
of the art piece, and some blurbs from like the game designers too, of like how the art played into like the card itself and how it played. Like,
Hmm.
that's what I want. I want that. And if they make that, they will make a lot of money. So many people will buy
Yes.
that.
Yes. Ravensburger, if you're listening,
If you're listening,
free
coffee
ideas
table
right
book.
there. Because I mean, they've definitely got enough art to start with.
Absolutely.
They could
Yes.
almost put out, a book, a chapter if they wanted to at
I
this point.
mean, gosh, really, they really
Yeah.
could. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, I really hope that they also keep doing things like, the Illumineers quest. I know,
Oh
the
yeah.
Gateway kind of, I think, replaced it for this set, but, I hope that and not just, co-op, maybe,
Mm.
make some scenario based kind of stuff. I mean, it was kind
Oh,
of scenario based,
interesting. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, just have kind of some variety between the sets
Yeah.
and, have it fit the theme of the set and everything like Ursula's one did, but
Right.
it'd be really
My
cool.
theory is that we're going to get a new Lumineers quest every 4 sets. This
Okay.
one was
I could see
was
it.
the this one was the Lumineers quest Deep Trouble. Like Deep
Hmm.
Trouble was the little sub name. And so, that will have like a new story arc over the next 3 to 4 sets that will culminate in a new Lumineers quest, like let's say Hades is the big bad, that would be like Illumineer's quest, the underworld or something.
Yep.
And that will have a new villain to battle. So,
Yep.
or something like that. I think it's great, which is the other wonderful thing about this. Is that there's so much story, the
Hmm.
lore that's tied in. It's not just these random characters. It's like all the flavor text and little hints and clues in the art and everything to kind of like tie everything together across different sets and different cards and connections. It's like a little treasure hunt, of
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
clues. It makes it really fun. So I really enjoy that aspect of the game as well.
Yeah. It was amazing how many references. No, now when we found out that it was Ursula and she
Yeah.
was, taking over the glimmers and everything, that you go back and look even at the first set. It's like, oh,
Sorry, my
it's like,
Siri went off.
oh, must have thought I was talking to it. Um, No, it's interesting, even like looking back at the first set, with stuff like Detective Mickey, where
Mm.
he was looking, at the
The
little tendril.
seaweed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I get it now.
Yes.
And I think we are already seeing some of that, with some of the
Hmm.
reveals for Shimmering Skies. How there's like the luminary is falling apart, but they're having a
Yeah.
big party and everybody's trying to figure out what's going on. And yeah, I look forward to seeing where this all takes us. And
Yeah.
I, as a Hades fan, I do hope that he's the kind of the
In
big
the
bad for
next.
this one. But
I think a
but
lot of people are hoping that. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and there's some of the the flavor text on some of his cards that kind of
Hmm.
hints at that too. But
Yes. Very
knowing
much.
how they develop this stuff,
Mhm.
it could be that, he's actually not this one, but the next one, or something like that.
Right.
So,
Could
because
be.
they're like 4 sets ahead on planning or something
There.
like that.
Oh, I'm
So,
sure. Yeah. And they're very tricky in how all these clues and,
yeah, yeah.
breadcrumbs they leave behind for us. So it's fun.
Hmm. So Shimmering Skies, we've gotten a
Yes.
lot of cards revealed, especially today. It seems like we
So
got like
many.
20 of them today or
Yeah.
something.
So
Um,
many.
but do you have any particular one that you're really excited about?
Ah, there's a lot. I will say broadly, I am excited about all the Wreck-It Ralph cards. Like
Right.
ever
All
since
the
we had the
racers and
the
yep.
pick a fight card and what was it, set 2, I've been waiting for
Mhm.
Princess Vanellope, and so I'm really excited just for all the Wreck-It Ralph cards. That's going to be a lot of fun. But I am excited about that new Robin Hood card that came out. What's it called? Sneaky something. The Robin Hood
Oh, the one that is that the
sleuth.
one that costs one less for each damage on the
It's
opposing
um
characters or
It's this character gets +1 lore for
oh,
each
that one.
opposing
Yes.
damaged character in play. He's
Yep.
a Floodborn, and the art is really cool on
Hmm.
this card. But also, I think it's just a really neat card. Perfect for your Emerald Steel damage deck. It fits perfectly with like the grab your swords and the Tinkerbell and all
Hmm.
the damage cards that you have in steel. So I think that will be a really fun, and I think it pairs well with a lot of the other Robin Hood cards that we've seen as
Yep.
well.
Yep. Gotten a
So
lot
I
of them
think
for
that
next set.
yes, yes. So that one I'm excited about. I don't know how competitive it will be, but I could see it
Yeah.
going into some really fun decks.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen a lot of people talking on Twitter, about different kinds of things, that could be triggers
Yes.
and different combinations. And I have to admit, I've been working on,
Nice.
potential deck for it myself. So I
Excellent.
like the concept, it's something
Yeah.
different. It's not, that's one of the things I love about new sets coming out and new types of cards and interactions is that,
Mm.
it really gets your mind going
Oh,
about
for
things
sure.
that, you're so, I don't know about you, but you get so stuck in the meta and,
Mhm.
all the really big decks, the top four,
Yeah.
top three decks
Yeah.
that, to have a new set come in with new possibilities is kind of nice. It's kind of refreshing.
Cleansing, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely.
The
And
other
I mean,
cards I'm excited. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and we've only gotten a little bit of it so far.
Right. Yeah. Like there's still so much left to see. The
Yep.
other cards I will mention is the new Snow White and Seven Dwarfs that we got today.
Yes, I saw that one. Yeah.
Very excited about the like I just again not competitive. I want to see an amber steel now, all Snow White and Seven Dwarfs.
Yep. Yep.
I just love how they're taking all the princesses though and like turning them into knights. It's
I know.
pretty
It's pretty cool.
awesome.
Yeah.
And some of the cards like I forget what Snow White does specifically, but some of the dwarves, I could see them fitting into some other decks that would
Oh,
have
yeah.
some nice like competitive, maybe find its place in a competitive deck. So yeah,
Yep.
there's lots of good stuff and lots more to go.
Yep. Yeah. I look forward to it and to see what we can expect. I mean, it's
Yeah.
time's getting close.
Yes, it
August
is.
9th is coming fast. So, all right. Well, cool. Well, hey, thank you so much for sitting down with me. I
Oh,
really
thank you,
appreciate it.
Chris.
I, loved getting to talk to you. Um, I, like I said, love your content. Appreciate all the work that you put in on it. And I know lots of other other people in the community do
Thank you.
too. Um, so I like to end with three questions. First off, what is your favorite ink to play, and what's your favorite card to play right now?
Right now. I know it changes on the day.
Yeah, I know, right?
My well, my favorite ink for a long time, it was something else. I won't even say. But right now it's amethyst. I love amethyst. I
Okay.
love all the bounce, all the Merlin Mim stuff. And I've been playing with it for a while. And yeah, I just really enjoy the bounce stuff with amethyst. So that's my favorite ink to play. But my favorite card right now is it's actually Avalanche,
That's a
which
good one
is
though. That's a
which
great
is a
card.
steel card.
Yeah.
And because right now it's so good against using against Bucky, especially
Hmm.
if they have Hidden Cove out. And it
Yes.
also comes in handy when you're playing against another Amethyst deck if they get Queen's Castle out because it can take care of a
Hmm.
location. Anyway, so Avalanche has been my favorite card lately.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think it's such a great card, and I
Yeah.
didn't see it played all that much. You see
Yeah.
it on occasion, but it seems like it should have fit in more places than than it did. But
It's hard because it's an action, right? So you can't sing
right.
it. It's uninkable, which, so there's that. And it does cost four. So it's a little
It's a
expensive.
little, yeah, a little expensive. That's true.
So, but I think having like at least two, I think if you can find a place for at least two Avalanche in your deck, if you're playing steel, I think it's worth it. It's a really
Yeah.
strong card.
Yeah. Well, and it comes in handy when you need it. I
Ve-
mean, especially
Very
if,
handy.
you
Yes.
get your opponent has two
Oh
queen's
man.
castles out,
Yes.
and yeah, that's
Oh
that's rough.
yeah.
So,
Yes.
all right. So next up, what's your favorite Disney movie and why? Disney kid.
Uh, my favorite Disney movie, I know. My favorite character is actually Ariel, but that's not
Okay.
my favorite Disney movie. It's
Okay.
Encanto.
Nice.
Oh, you
Uh,
froze. Oh, there we're back. Um, Encanto, I think, is such a beautiful movie, like
mhm.
visually. I think the music is incredible. Like every song is a banger.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
they're all good. And I just love the message, like the story with like family bonds, breaking generational trauma. Like it's a very deep
Yeah.
movie. It
Yeah.
makes me cry every single time I watch it.
No.
So, you know, it's yeah, that's my favorite.
Yeah. I have to admit I've seen it quite a few times myself, and I still get a little, teary-eyed, or
Hmm.
whenever especially the doorknob scene at the end there. It's like every time that comes
Oh,
on, I'm just like, oh God.
that yeah. I
But
even
yeah.
could just be listening to the song and I know,
Hmm.
exactly where that moment is in the song. And if
Yep.
I'm just listening to the soundtrack, it makes me get teary-eyed because I'm like, oh,
Yep.
the
Yep.
doorknob.
Yep.
My heart. Yes.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, on a lighter note, so tell people where they can find you. You got all sorts of great
Yeah.
content out there, so
So you can find me on Twitter. I am there a little bit at the Illuminary, but I mostly am over on Instagram. It's lurkana.illuminary. And I hope you do. If you don't follow me, I just, I love to have a lot of fun, bring the positivity to the Lurkana space. So that's where you'll find me hanging out.
awesome. And hopefully at all the future DLCs, right?
Hopefully. Yes, we'll see.
Well, cool. Well, thank you again. I really appreciate you taking some time to sit down and
Thanks,
chat with
Chris.
me. And
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, thank you. And guess I'll see you around the community.
See you around.
Thanks for joining us on today's episode. If you liked what you heard, make sure to subscribe and rate or like us on your platform of choice. If you'd like to reach out to the show, you can email us at lorcanachats@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter or X at lorcanachats, the podcast at podcast.lorcanachats.com, or just lorcanachats.com. We love feedback on the show, and let us know if there's anyone you'd like to hear from in the Lorcana community. See you next time.